first. I'm Greg Busick, president of IHL Group, and with me are three esteemed colleagues. We have four devout football fans with us today, and we've got Jeff Roster, who is a huge 49ers fan, who is, although rejoicing over the fact that the Golden State Warriors won the NBA championship, is mourning the fact that Jim Harbaugh is now at Michigan, which is where Michael Martin is a big fan. And Michael Martin is VP of Financial Technology Services at Sodexo. And that'll be finalized with Dan Grady, who's principal of Secor Consulting Group, our partner for 10 years. And Dan is a huge New England Patriots fan and probably the least obnoxious Patriots fan I've ever met, which is a very good thing. So a little background about IHL, if you're not familiar with us. Basically, IHL does three things. First, we're going to talk a lot about today is helping retailers and restaurants make better informed and faster IT decisions. We do that with our partner, Secor Consulting Group. Second, we do syndicated research and data services, everything from benchmarking to our IT forecast model with Worldview, Sophia Data Service, and then later today, we're going to talk about the third program, which is our advisory programs. We have two of those, the Retail Executive Advisory Program designed for vendors and the Strategic Operations Engagement or Exchange that is designed for retailers. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. These are some of the folks that we've worked with in the past, and as you can see, a lot of big names on there and a lot of different logos to take your attention. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the new guy, Jeff Roster, who has recently joined IHL. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Greg. Got to say what a pleasure it is to be here. I don't know if you remember, but the first conference I ever went to was down in Long Beach, and it was a really interesting IBM press conference. I think they were releasing SurePOS something. Met some really interesting characters there. The whole IBM team. I met Dennis Eskow and ended up developing a really interesting partnership. And the other person I actually met there was an analyst by the name of Greg Busick. I remember, Greg, you were poring over the SurePOS, looking at all those different features on it, and I, as a shavetail analyst, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I wasn't even sure what to do. So I followed you around. I've chased you around for 15 years, and I got to say I'm thrilled to be on the same team. So thanks for welcoming me. So one of the key questions that I've been getting and wrestling with the last couple of months is what's going on. Will I use the O word? And I got to tell you, I was really a little bit frustrated with what I was going to do, because everyone probably in the vendor community knows I'm not a big fan of the term. My previous employer actually prefers the term multi-channel, and so as I was sort of wrestling with what I'm going to do in this position, we sort of came to the understanding that really I think what's going to happen here is not really the industry is going to move rapidly beyond the word omnichannel, and I think Richard Mader says it here perfectly. Unified commerce is one step beyond omnichannel and appears to largely satisfy all new technology-enabled functions required in this age of customer-centric retail. Serve the customer when, where, and how they desire. And I think that says it perfectly. The point here is we're talking about multiple touch points engaging in a single platform that allows a retailer to do whatever they want, whenever they want. The most important thing here is the consumer understands the concept. If you talk to any millennial, if you talk to actually most consumers, they don't understand what we've spent the last couple of years talking about. They just want to engage with us in a retail model that makes sense for them. They want to shop online, buy in the store, shop online, return in the store, whatever engagement. And I think unified commerce really speaks to that. We're going to look at a couple of key trends here and see where this all sets in the industry. Or three trends. Store growth continues. That's a really important component when we talk about what's happening in unified commerce. We hear a lot of stuff about, well, is the store physically dead? No, we'll talk about that. Second trend is IT spend is growing, but at a constrained rate versus unified commerce. Very, very important point also to understand for every retailer out there that we're actually seeing an overall increase in IT spend. And finally, unified commerce is important, but we're not there yet. I think Dan and Mike are going to really unpack that to a great So the first trend, as I said, is store growth for 2015. We believe at IHL that we'll see store count increase 3.2%, and store remodels about 3.1%. So the point here is a tremendous amount of activity that's still happening at the physical store. Stores are growing. And so as you, as a retailer, begin to consider what you want to do, how you want to engage with your customer, you have to assume that your competitors are, in fact, still, while we're closing stores, but we're also revamping stores, and we're remodeling stores, and we're building out that new engagement model. So a tremendous amount of focus in multiple channels inside a physical retail environment, let alone what the pure plays are doing. So we're seeing Amazon build physical stores. We're seeing other retailers build physical stores. Trend two is IT spend continues to increase. And so here in this slide, you see what IHL is forecasting. So overall, enterprise IT spend 6% if you're under $500 million, about 5.2% if you're 500 to $1 billion, and about 3.1% over $1 billion. So overall, we're seeing growth inside IT spend. When we look at it by store, that's the blue line, 2.6% for store IT spend increase if you're a small retailer, 2.8%. So yeah, it's always an interesting debate that I've had for years as to whether a 3-point or a 6-point% is a dramatic increase. The key point here is that we're seeing IT spend, but we're also seeing IT spend increase at a somewhat constrained rate versus what we're seeing when we just look at some of the various components of unified commerce. See a far greater spend. We actually believe about 6% growth in the components that are related to unified commerce. And so what that tells you is, if you're a retailer, if you haven't thought through what those technologies mean and how you want to embrace that, you can anticipate your competitors are in fact moving fairly more aggressively. Here we look at the understanding of the rise of distributed order management. And so here's a slide from a recent study. 63% of respondents indicated that distributed order management with a POS front end is the desired end state for where they're going. Only 37% really plan to maintain their existing approach to point of sale. What that tells you is we're at really a crossing point where we're seeing fundamental transformation in how retailers want to engage, in the business of unified commerce. By subsector, 31% of specialty retailer moving a little more aggressively, 27% versus hard, or 19% versus grocery. So there's differences in the subsectors, but what you can take away for sure is a fundamental transformation in how we're approaching retail. So the key question we always get, and something that every retailer or every vendor needs to ask when analysts are talking about something, is, well, okay, how much is wishful thinking, or how much is it just you that are trying to make noise, or trying to make some controversial statement, or along those lines. When we look at slides like this from a recent RAS News IHL study, what you see are the building blocks that are in place now. What's always important to understand when you look at survey data is we're not necessarily saying this is the de facto percent of retailers across the entire North American retail landscape that have return online purchases, 52%. But what you can be sure is the level of intensity. And so when you see return online purchases at 52% and holistic planning across channels at 18%, you can see the delta between those two. And so whether it's 52% or a little bit less, or maybe even a little bit more, you know the intensity. And when you look down this time frame for adoption, you can see this industry rapidly moving into a unified commerce model. 52% want to return online. Check inventory to other stores, 48%, supposedly already up to date. I would argue that half the retail industry is not there today, but certainly the intensity. And when you look all the way down, when you add the red, which is up to date, blue, 0 to 12 months, and then the green, 12 to 24 months, you're looking at fundamental transformation how we're approaching. So when I sit in the seat that I look at, and I look out and talk to retailers as well as talk to the vendors that are building this capability, what every retailer needs to think about is they need to understand that this is not something that you want to do one-off. This is not something you want to do anecdotal or accidental. This is fundamental transformation where significant resources are being bet. Maybe the future of your company is being bet. And so what I would argue for is you want to take a very, very holistic approach to how you evolve this next generation of retail. Think through, understand, lay out a long-term strategy, and really be successful in the retailing wars. Greg, got to say it's just a pleasure to be back working with you and not competing against you. So thanks for having me on board, and let's do some fun things this year.
Sounds good, Jeff. Well, thanks. We're really thrilled to have you with us, and we look forward to all the things we can do together. At this point, we want to turn it over to the real brain trust of the group today, which is Mike Martin from Sodexo. I got involved with Mike on a project of, oh gosh, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and quickly realized that this isn't like your typical big box retailer. Sodexo is a massive organization with a variety of different technical challenges that cross many different segments. If you're not familiar with Sodexo, Mike's going to give you a great overview here of them and kind of the challenges that they faced, and then that'll lead into some of the methodology we're talking about in terms of developing your own roadmap. So Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Greg, it's a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. My name's Mike Martin. As you've heard, I'm the VP of Financial System Initiatives at Sodexo. Just for clarity, that role reports to the CFO here at Sodexo. As you can see, it's quite a large company with 18 billion euros consolidated, the 18th largest employer in the world, working in 86 countries. I think thinking about that impact is probably best as looking at the 75 million customer interactions daily. A large company, very complex and growing. We're very likely the largest company you've never heard of. So, with that in mind, I'd like to talk to you about the area I know best, which is Sodexo North America. I'm actually on the on-site services line, so we'll understand on-site in just a second. The North American segment is the largest in the group and accounts for around 40% of our global revenues. We provide food and facility management, other support services, and integrated solutions to customers in the corporate, education, healthcare, government, leisure, and seniors segments, along with remote sites. Our on-site numbers are really the focus of this slide, with a $9 billion U.S. footprint, 9,000 locations, and only a paltry 15 million customer interactions daily. That's our story. I thought I would share with you a little bit about our mission. It's quite an ambitious mission, and it does permeate all those service lines we talked about, and we'll talk about them in just a second. But as you can tell, with a mission this expansive and a mission this complete, our system, strategy, and best planning is needed to excel. We need quick internal learning, need to learn how to fish for ourselves, but that learning and the type of support that IHL and C-Corp provided us is critical. For most retailers, but us in particular, many vendors with many solutions and many sales reps spells disaster. As you think about that ambition, a quality of life provider with extended services, we're essentially trying in all three lines to really work a cradle to grave approach. You will likely run into Sodexo sometime in your work history, at your children's schools, at a visit to a hospital, a visit to a university as a student or a spectator for a sport, receiving a gift card, either a loyalty or a recognition card, or during a visit with a relative in an assisted living center. Essentially, the on-site services is the core business, but the benefits, reward, and personal home services are what further link the business and lead to that integrated approach. The next item is really just a quick look at our customers. but or some of our customers, but the segment is full of, our segment, our approach to business is to meet the unique needs of those customers to provide what they define as quality of life. We have complex and unique contracts that match that work. It means we need to be very flexible in the systems that meet those various needs and provide integration and efficiencies to remain competitive with a market that's increasingly commoditized. Our customers are usually large and complex. No two have the same service offering, and in our case, the complexities are that no two have the same kitchen, no two have the same geographic footprint. So each offering, each location, each contract is vastly different. That uniqueness leads to many unique business needs and solution solving. I'll tell you a little bit about how our journey started with C-Corp and IHL in this next slide. I met IHL when I inherited ownership for a point-of-sale solution, a very simple point-of-sale solution that we had purchased. Greg put us in touch with Dan and Frank at C-Corp. We asked them to come in and assess where we are with that simple project. A simple little project is how we called them that day, thinking it was a very short, week-long engagement. Greg ultimately came on site and helped us understand where the point-of-sale direction was headed. He helped us drive the assessment of our current vendor landscape and to begin to understand the depth of our needs. We quickly realized as the internal team what we needed, which touch points, the relevant data, and started to expand our thoughts. Internally, not terribly well received. Essentially, the project was identified as one lacking from leadership and a vast growth of creep. So scope creep kind of took over in our leaders' minds. So it forced us to get some discipline and to open some dialogue, driving toward an inventory of the solutions that we currently used. It became obvious in that particular project that a suite solution was needed to replace the various point of sales and the proliferation that had happened serving all those unique customers. Over time, it just got worse, frankly. So it took us a while to socialize those new learnings, align the leaders, and get everyone on board to move to a kind of a larger, certainly a more complex, a more integrated and common system. We formalized the objectives, we made tough decisions, we developed the requirements across all of our lines of business on that on-site services, which I told you was 7, 8, or 9 different markets, and then we went looking for those solutions. Most vendors had a level of maturity, and the level of maturity for true unified commerce, didn't exist. Most modules for POS, we were dealing with mobile and web, kiosk, and several other elements, but it was an independent look. This frequently meant different data models and complexity and approach in how to align them. We needed to work in multiple places in multiple ways to get our data aligned. Once we finished the assessment and got this project started, we realized that we really needed to do the same effort, the same approach of a roadmap and a concerted, concentrated approach for all our major lines of business and all our projects. Frankly, if I had to do it again, we would have started with the roadmap first and then launched a project, and that's what we do today in the areas within my purview and inside the company. But it wasn't just financial services, it wasn't just the office of the CFO, it was really that C-Corp helped us move from our POS project into helping us launch our PMO, and we began a comprehensive roadmap and journey. And the first part of that roadmap, and critical to this, is really building the governance model, getting the right process ownership, clearly defining that ownership, and determining who has responsibility to drive the roadmap and lead the decisions that will mark the key milestones in that roadmap work. We built a business function model that shows all the processes we operate and identified the owner of each, and how they integrate. We we finished our application portfolio and found hundreds of applications, many IT supported, sadly many that were not in their purview, were not within their sight, and had proliferated in a rogue way. We aligned the efforts going forward, and we had to make difficult choices. We had to decide to tackle a few major projects. Like most companies, not flush with resources in an unlimited capacity of IT, capital, or business resources. We really had to look at what we must do and see what we could do on top of that, what we could possibly add to that work. The hard reality was the must-dos consumed almost all the available resources and left us validating and confirming the steps in that roadmap all the time. So the key learnings for us as you move through an integrated, and we moved through an integrated retail suite, was the partnership that the C-Corps and IHL provided to support us and guide us on how we would do that. We learned in that roadmap that one is, the first item is that we needed to view one view of the initiatives, not department, not silos. One view of the initiatives, rationalize and prioritize those, and use a group leadership model. We needed visibility to all projects underway and how they were doing. Were they on track or not? The second area was really to focus on the core platforms first. Many of those are enablers for other projects and the big, hairy, audacious goals that an organization like ours would have coming through those first core and foundational platforms. Data and integration are really the secrets when working on these large programs. If Unified Commerce's promise is to improve in that area, then I'm all in. It's the first I'm hearing about unified commerce. I'm really thinking integrated retail systems in my world, but if that does that, then I'm all in. You have all my support. But you need strong vendor partners who have a vision. And it can't be just the silo. It has to be more concrete and aligned with what my real needs are. In that vision, a roadmap that they can share and ultimately deliver on. So those are the keys to our success. I wish you success in your journey. Now let me turn this over to Dan and let him explain what he thinks is necessary for success in your company.
Well, thank you, Mike. Sodexo has been a great client for us to work with. They have excellent leaders like Mike who recognize the situation and made the hard decisions that are needed to move an organization forward. My partner Frank Urbaniak and I came out of the grocery business. We led a retail services department and spent our time between the business and IT. So I understand how important both sides of those pieces are to solving these complex problems. We've had 30 customers since 2006, and most of our customers use us for multiple projects. We've done about 24 what we typically get called on as point-of-sale projects, but typically are a retail solution for stores. We focus on retail and sit on the retailer side of the desk when we're assisting them. Our go-to-market methodology is called the Rapid Project Toolkit, and it's content-loaded approach to jumpstart the retailer's projects. As Mike said, a key part of this is to figure out your scope, understand your requirements, so that as you're looking at solutions, it's very crisp as to what you're trying to accomplish. Our key focus areas are developing the roadmaps, working through the expanded point-of-sale solution, and we'll define what that is going forward, workforce management, store replenishment, merchandising, fresh item management, and we frequently assist on PMO and project deployment. When we started talking to Greg and Jeff about the transformation from multi-channel to omni-channel to unified commerce, we were all trying to get our heads around what's different. And when we started going through and doing retail systems or point-of-sale implementations about 8 or 9 years ago heavily, frequently it started off with point-of-sale. People were getting into different payment types. Cash management controls were important to folks. But very quickly, they would go through and need to be able to supplement their existing core merchandising or ERP system with additional functionality to go through and really solve the customer experience and drive the loyalty, the CRM, and how they wanted to present themselves to customers. As we went through and looked at building out those solutions, areas like clienteling, mobile, tablet, kiosk, all the different platforms really became a criteria for each of these modules. When we go through and we look at distributed order management, it's really tying inventory into this selling process. So in the past, where the focus was on expanding the pricing and promotional capabilities, it soon became we need to be able to go through and look at where we have this product, how can we get that product to the consumer if we're out of stock in one particular area, or what's the most efficient way to go through and meet their needs. So I think for us, this whole suite of products is really evolving, and it's going to be important for each vendor to go through and look at where does their solution start and end, and how do they either tie into the core solutions for a retailer. That's where we think the evolution of unified commerce is going. When we go back to the picture that Jeff just shared with you, and you look at the top spending priorities for retailers in 2015, this list is really all about the scope of unified commerce. The only item that's even listed on this page that isn't part of unified commerce is workforce management software and hardware, and we all know that how important that is to making the unified commerce work. If you don't have the people there at the right time and place, nothing happens. So what does this mean? So our take on the last couple of slides is that clients still think about this as separate projects. And the reason for it is they're trying to go through and solve for a particular problem. And our conversation with clients is often that they've got to go through and look at their holistic roadmap, and if they don't have it, they need to put it together, because before you go off and work on one of those point projects, you should think about how it fits into the big picture, and are you going to be working in 3 or 4 of these areas over the next year or two, and what is the right timing for trying to move to a more holistic solution that's going to go through and meet your multi-channel, omni-channel, unified commerce needs going forward. When we're working with customers, that may come in from working with them in multiple areas. It may have started off by doing the roadmap or by looking at point of sale, which frequently is where it comes from. But we've also had that come in as we're looking at merchandising system and seeing where they start and end, or even looking at the replenishment area and saying, does it really belong in that part of the business, or should it be tied into the way we're selling at the individual unit? So the unified commerce plan as part of the roadmap can come from a lot of different sources. When we go through and look at the roadmap of business and IT initiatives, it needs to be a logical and effective approach to synchronize all of the projects. As Mike said, it's got to be across all the various lines of business. It's got to go through and be prioritized, and it should help you answer the questions of the what, the when, the who, the where, the why, and the how of the various projects that you're trying to go through and take on. The more complex the organization, the longer it takes to put together the roadmap, and as Mike's experience showed, the more touch points and people that you have to get involved to go through and agree on the priorities of the organization. So our roadmap methodology, and most people's should be, to go through and assess the current state, go through and understand where you are today, what initiatives do you have underway. Sometimes you need to stop them. We frequently go in and suggest that you may have to stop, sometimes up to 90% of the things you're doing in order to focus on the big rocks and make sure you've got enough resources and focus on the big rocks versus lots of little tactical deployments. Make sure that you're looking at all of the resources, maybe not just the IT people that you know about, but frequently the IT people or the business people that are working on these projects are buried in the business, and you just don't even know how many people are out there and working on things. a full list of the applications. You know, I heard the term, and it might have come from Jeff or Greg, cockroach IT, which was really you turn the light on and you start looking around, you find all these applications that nobody even knew about, and frequently that happens when we go in and start assessing the current state. And after you've gone through and done a thorough current state assessment and you go through and compare it to the actual business strategy and the priorities and what you're trying to solve for, then start going through and looking at your future state initiatives, reprioritizing those, and identifying what resources it's going to take to complete that project. So I'd like to turn it back over to Greg to go through and explain the new programs that are available through IHL.
Thanks, Dan. For those of you who are listening, you know, I've said this quite publicly behind their back. Dan and Frank, in my mind, are the two biggest secrets in retail right now. The stuff that they're doing is just absolutely brilliant, and it creates benefits and savings that drop right to the bottom line. The cost of false starts for programs that retailers take, those costs are tremendous, because it's not just the cost of the programmers, or just not the cost of the actual IT that's been bought. It's the fact that you're not doing the right things at the right time, and thus you're losing precious momentum to compete against the likes of Walmart and Amazon, and now Jet.com that came out today, and all the increasing number of competitors that are coming into that. The final piece of our talk today in this initial webinar really plays on both of these topics. The new guy that we brought on with Jeff offers us an opportunity to grow aspects of IHL's business, as well as some of the stuff in the partnership with C-Corp is opening up doors for us to explore other opportunities with retailers as well. So I wanted to outline two of those for you today. The first one, or both of these, can be found on our website. If you go to our website, you can look up research and advisory, and they're under both of those. And we'll talk about both of those here. So just research and advisory at ihlservices.com, and you can get more details on either one of these programs. The first one, is actually for the retailers, the Strategic Operational Exchange. This is a project that is designed to be a free 30-minute confidential consultation with the IHL analysts and C-Corp consultants to go over your questions, whatever those might be. This is available to retailers, restaurants, hospitality establishments. Basically, if you're a buyer of IT solutions from major vendors, this is designed for you. It's a free 30-minute consultation. You'll have one or more of us on the call. That can be anything from a contract review, a vendor review and positioning, a review of your place on your own technology roadmap. Really, it's to help you answer questions and give you that warm fuzzy about where you are with the decisions that you have to make. Like, have you left anybody out? Are there other vendors I need to be considering? Is this the right decision, and is now the right time? Do you know anybody that can help with XYZ? That's what the Strategic Operational Exchange is. You can go to the website. Once again, you can log in, or you can click through that, and you can fill out a form, and we can set that up for you. Once again, it's free, no strings attached. It's really our way of trying to help you guys understand the capabilities of IHL by helping you. That's available, once again, starting now. So you guys can sign up for that. The second aspect of this is designed for not only the retailers, but vendors and consultants. Now, IHL, my background is I came from the product management side of the business, and our business grew ministering or writing research targeted towards product managers, directors of product management, etc. What's happened is a lot of our clients have grown up, and they are now running. They're the vice presidents and senior vice presidents of large divisions throughout the industry. Guys like, you know, Mike at Oracle was working in self-checkout when I knew him, and now he leads Oracle's retail business, for instance. So this Retail Executive Advisory Program is designed to be a combination of research, advisory inquiries, briefings, etc. through there. And it's leveraging key strengths that we have at IHL, not only key data strengths, but key relational strengths between myself and Jeff and Jerry and Lee, in the industry at the executive level. So it's a series of 8 different research studies that we're going to be putting together that is going to rank rank vendors by revenue, total size of revenue, leveraging what we're doing in terms of market size, key components, key players, trends, drivers, barriers, and forecast through our SOFIA, as well as our worldview components and our advisory stuff. So it includes combinations of webinars, on-site days, presentations, etc. The big difference about what we're doing at IHL, though, that nobody else is doing, is this is an enterprise license. We don't play seat games. This is not about trying to figure out who has what right to be on the call for what. And that is a big, big deal here. When we do our state of the industry briefings, those can be for your entire team, not just 3 executives. And so that's the Retail Executive Advisory Program. Once again, that is on our website. And finally, before we get into Q&A, I'd like to invite everybody to Super Saturday for Retail Orphan Initiative. All 4 of us have traveled together to Honduras. I think combined we're involved in, let's see, at least 4 or 5 different countries that we've traveled to or invested in projects on. A big part of that fundraiser is Super Saturday 2016, which is the day before NRF starts. Come one day early. It's at PwC building in Manhattan. We just signed up our keynote speaker, who's a country music singer by the name of Jimmy Wayne. If you're a country fan, you may know him. Jimmy's had several #1 hits, and he'll be joining us. But what you may not know is Jimmy's a former homeless and then foster child who made it big and sang with Brad Paisley and Kenny Chesney and all the big guys, and then realized that he had made a promise when he was a foster kid that if he ever made it, he was going to do something to bring awareness to foster kids. So he walked, starting on January 1st, he walked from Nashville to Phoenix, and took 6 months to do that. And this is about his story, and it will blow your mind. The more important thing there, though, is Super Saturday is a fundraiser. The vendors help pay for the event. The retailers come for free. We've raised over $2 million in 6 years through this and helped 175,000 kids. So this is a big deal to all of us, and continues to grow, and we're really thankful for that. I think it's really been a joy, seriously, to work with these guys, and with Jeff coming on board has been a real positive for IHL and things going on there. I mean, all football issues aside, it's been really cool from my perspective to work with high-quality people like Mike and Dan and Frank throughout the years, and by adding Jeff on board, it's just another positive to the whole IHL portfolio, so to speak. With that, I think we're gonna end up the broadcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you do have questions, further questions, here are our emails that you can reach out to us, and we'll certainly get you an answer to those questions. And certainly, if you have any questions about anything else, please let us know. And thanks again for joining us.